Monday through Friday at this time, the Columbia Broadcasting System presents Service Time. Every Tuesday afternoon, this program is devoted to the men who sail the ships of the United States Merchant Marine. In cooperation with the War Shipping Administration, Columbia brings you its Maritime. It's Maritime, a program dramatizing the history and color of the American Merchant Marine. This is the story of the sea, of clipper ships and schooners, of floating convoys and liberty ships. This is the story of maritime America. Today you'll hear about two ships that were named for American women. You'll hear how our modern merchant ships get their names. And there'll be music with Ensign Philip Lang directing the orchestra of the Maritime Training Station of Sheepshead Bay. Yes, it's Maritime. We set sail this afternoon with a fast rhythm number which tells about a monkey that flew through the air as no monkey ever flew before. Petty Officer Lenny Gaynor sings, "Straighten Up and Fly Right."
Buzzer took a monkey for a ride in the air. The monkey thought that everything was on the square. The buzzer tried to throw the monkey off of his back, but the monkey grabbed his head and now listen, Jack. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. What's the use of jiving? Ain't no use in diving. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. The buzzer told the monkey, you are choking me. Release your hold and I will set you free. The monkey looked the buzzer like dead in the eye and said, your story's so touching, sounds just like a lie. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Monkey, you were choking me. Release your hold and I will set you free. The monkey looked the buzzard right dead in the eye and said, your story's so touching, sounds just like a lie. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and fly right. Cool down, Papa, don't you blow your
American ship owners have always been especially fond of women's names for their ships, possibly because most seamen speak of a ship as a she. Many of the early sailing vessels were given a girl's name, and one of the most famous of these was a Salem ship, the Margaret.
Captain Derby, the Margaret's a mighty fine ship. Look how she rides there in the harbor, like a queen.
Yes, Mr. Cleveland. I expect to make many a profitable voyage aboard the Margaret. How about coming along on the first voyage as our clerk?
I was hoping you'd ask me, sir.
Then it's settled.
Where's the Margaret bound for?
We're going to Nagasaki.
Japan?
Yes?
Why, only 2 American ships have ever been there.
That's right, and we're going to be the third.
Months later, the Margaret reached Batavia. There, Captain Derby was approached by a member of the East India Company.
Captain Derby, I understand you're bound for Japan.
That's right, sir.
But without any cargo, that seems such a pity.
Well, our owners figured it would be foolish to bring a cargo all the way from America when we could probably pick one up here in the East to carry to Japan.
Your owners are very wise.
Perhaps you know of someone with a cargo they wish to have taken to Nagasaki.
Come to think of it, my company has just such a cargo.
Really?
Yes? Shall we discuss terms?
By all means.
On the 19th of July, the Margaret entered the harbor of Nagasaki. After dropping anchor, the crew unloaded the cargo which they had brought for the East India Company. Then they had to wait for the cargo they were to carry back to Salem. None of the crew was allowed to leave the ship and go into the city. And there was a long and tedious wait before their cargo was brought from many hundreds of miles in the interior. In November, the Margaret sailed for home. Like all other ships, she was obliged to sail on a certain day, a day selected by the Japanese. All ships departed on that certain day, whether they were ready to sail or not. The Japanese are a very strange people. In April 1810, the Margaret left Naples with a crew of 15 men and 31 passengers. These were not ordinary passengers. Every one of them was a skilled seaman, and they were all bound for home.
You're all gear, you man! Underhand with a sword axe!
It'll be mighty good to see Boston Light again after all these months away from home.
Every man jack of us was aboard an American vessel confiscated by that rogue Napoleon.
Listen to that wind. I hope this ship can weather a gale. We're in for one this night.
I think Captain Fairfield can handle her.
Well, if he can't, there's a dozen other skippers aboard who can. I guess there never was a ship with so many skippers aboard.
There were a dozen sea captains aboard. But that night, the Margaret went down. Only 5 survivors were ever rescued. Thus ended the career of a great ship. A ship named for a long-forgotten American woman whose name was Margaret. Music now that will remind many a seaman of crisp October days and men in another kind of uniform playing football. The orchestra plays a medley of famous college songs. You have just heard a medley of college songs, colleges for which victory ships have been named. Have you ever wondered how all the new ships get their names? Well, here's a young lady who can tell you. Helen of Troy had nothing on Mrs. Eleanor Cunit, the gal who's launched 1,000 ships.
Well, named them anyway, and it's nearer 3,000.
Well, naming a family of 10 should be a cinch for you, Mrs. Cunit. Where in the world did you ever dig up 3,000 names?
Of course, I didn't just pull them out of my hat. The Maritime Commission has definite categories from which different types of ships are named. Famous Americans, historic battles, capes, lighthouses, oil fields, coal seams, old clipper ships, and, as you said, colleges.
Well, do you pick them on the basis of football scores?
No. Names are assigned on the basis of age and relative size of student body. The Harvard Victory launched last month came first. We also have the Yale Victory, the Princeton, the Browns, the Dartmouth, and the Colgate. But meanwhile, there's a letter a day from colleges we haven't yet used saying you named one for so-and-so, and after the way we trimmed you with football last season.
I begin to see your point. I understand Liberty ships are named for people. Tell me, what qualifications would I need to have one named for me?
First of all, you'd have to be dead. And don't ask me too much about that. I've had a couple of tight squeezes on that score.
You mean you made a mistake and named one for someone who wasn't dead?
I darn near did once. It was the man who carried the message to Garcia in the Spanish-American War. After the name had been assigned out of the history books, we found he was still drawing his pension, alive and apparently in excellent health.
Well, what did you do? Paint the name off the ship?
It wasn't necessary. The papers announced his death the next day.
It seems to me you could almost trace the growth of America through the names of Liberty ships.
You could. At first, we stuck close to history. But as more and more ships were launched, we used names right out of yesterday's newspapers. Alfred E. Smith, Bert Williams, Wendell Wilkie, Amelia Earhart, Will Rogers, and hundreds of others.
Well, tell me, how do you select a name?
Oh, we get plenty of help. Bales of letters come in with suggestions. Little boys want ships named after their dogs. Girls want ships named after their boyfriends. And practically everyone seems to have had a famous great-grandfather.
Well, do you use many of the names suggested?
Yes, we've used a good many of them. The American public has played a large part in naming its merchant fleet. On the other hand, I've been hard put now and then to find new ways of saying no.
Well, it looks as if life's going to be just a little dull for you after the war when you haven't any more ships to name.
Oh, I don't think so. After the war, when my husband gets out of the Army, we'll go back to Pennsylvania and name all the cows and the pigs and the chickens.
Well, it seems to me that after the war, Mrs. Cunit, with all your experience, you want to be able to get a job naming...
Now, wait a minute. Everybody tells me the same thing, and I'm tired of it. I'm not going to name Pullman cars.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Eleanor Cunit, for telling us something today about how ships are named. Mrs. Cunit, incidentally, wants it known that all the Liberty ships have been named, so please don't suggest the name of your great-grandfather. The name Jerome Kern always means music in a romantic mood. Here's a Kern song of a few seasons ago. Petty Officer Tommy Mercer sings All the Things You Are.
My heart could only find a voice. Ah, me, if my heart could